subscribe to the Late Kick Podcast wherever you get your pods if you haven't already. First question right out of the chute, like 5 a.m. this morning, if that late. I don't even think Bud Elliott was awake when I recorded that this morning, and he doesn't sleep. He just kind of hangs upside down from his roof for a few hours like a bat, and then he's up at like 4:30 in the morning. But the first question was, where are the upsets this weekend? It's a good question. Because as much as you've heard people whisper about Kentucky and Auburn, as much as you've said, ooh, Lane Kiffin, first game at Ole Miss, who's predicted an upset? I was on ESPN Upstate with Mark Ryan today. You know what my upset was? Florida International over Liberty. Because our numbers say so. I don't know why. Stay tuned for the Ramen Noodle Express later, by the way. But out of the major games, out of the marquee games, I haven't heard a single person that credibly has predicted any upset. I mean, I know you could come in. We had someone predict Ole Miss winning by 4 touchdowns in the chat. Don't think they'd probably stake any money on that. So let's just go through these games, shall we? Mississippi State at LSU. LSU is 16.5-point favorite as of about an hour ago. I think that this sets up very well for LSU. Now, we're already on the over. We gave that to you the other night. That is an official play for us. I think the passing game for LSU, my goodness, we'll have a lot of opportunity here. Now, there are a few different ways to think about a season opener, especially when you're replacing a whole lot of guys. And you think to yourself, all right, inferior opponent, got a lot of new pieces, you want time for everything to gel, probably ease into this thing, right? Well, maybe with some teams. I don't get the sense that's how Ed Orgeron plans on playing this weekend. Ed Orgeron's very big on messaging. And he's very big on sending messages to his team. And I think I think all of that staff, to be honest with you, will be on a mission to do that with the way that they manage this game. You can put it on a grease board all you want to. You can do radio interviews all you want to. Here's how you do it. You go straight from Mississippi State's throat offensively, the same style that you played with last year. And you put it on the players. And you let the players show themselves if they're capable of carrying out that kind of design and that kind of philosophy. Because that's how you decide. You don't tell them you can't do it. You give them the opportunity to do it. And here's the good news for LSU. There are a lot of good matchups out wide for them in this game. I think there'll be time to throw. I think there are a lot of good matchups to be had out there. That wide receiver skill on the other side of the ball, I just don't think is there for Mississippi State. People can talk all they want to. I've seen the quarterback over there, KJ Costello, talking this week about how what we do is really simple, but hey, we're going to go after you. Paraphrasing. I don't remember the exact quote. That's great and all, and I don't doubt they're going to score. We took the over for a reason. And I don't doubt they're going to stop trying to score. We took the over for a reason. LSU is going to put a big number up in this game. So I don't see the upset there. Could the upset be in Oxford? Certainly hope not. Florida was our best bet of the week. We got them at -12. They're at -14 now. That thing rose to as high as -15 or 15.5. A lot of new for Ole Miss, a lot of disruption for Ole Miss in the offseason in the way of COVID, of course. So I don't think Lane Kiffin trusts either of his quarterbacks right now. Matt Corral's there. Don't know if you can trust the decision-making. John Rice Plumlee's there. Don't know if he can stretch the field for you the way you want to. He's a great athlete. Just don't know if he can necessarily do what Lane Kiffin wants him to do. And Florida insiders, and this is really interesting because they may have a point here. You talk to people close to Florida and you ask them, hey, what do you think about the team? What's the most underrated aspect of the team? Wide receiver. They all think it. Every one of them down there says if there is an area of this team that's underrated, it's the wide receiver core. They've got a lot of versatility in that position room. And part of that versatility is good size. They got some big guys in that receiver room. The matchup here, I think it showcased early, and I think it heavily favors Florida. That secondary of Ole Miss's, just like I said about Mississippi State, there's going to be a lot of plays to be made for Florida. And so much like LSU and that wide receiver core that they want to establish and that passing game they want to establish, I think Dan Mullen thinks the same thing. And if you go tale of two halves here, I think it sets up very well for them to come out trying to display as much offensive firepower through the air as you've seen them display to this point. Mullen knows he's got the quarterback to do it. Mullen knows he's got the wide receiver room to do it. I think they're hopeful they've got the offensive line to give time and protection. But here's what you also know you can do. If you're Florida, you know you can fall back on that run game. And you know that you've got 3 guys there that you can lean on. We did the Florida season preview, the grand season preview today, so you can go watch that if you haven't already, because we talked about that 3-headed monster at running back a lot. So I say all that to say I don't see the upset there. I think Florida wins, and I think Florida covers. How about Florida State and Miami? Miami's favored by, some of you thought it was going to be 3 touchdowns. No, they're favored by 11. They're coming off the big win against Louisville. Florida State is 2 weeks removed from an embarrassing home opener against Georgia Tech. They did not play last week. Mike Norvell missing this game due to COVID, but all of his players are still good to go. You know what history says. I don't need to tell you. If you've paid attention to this sport, if you've ever bet this sport, history tells you that there's some kind of trap. There's some kind of shenanigans brewing in this game. But yet you can't quantify it. You can't dive deeper. And also, the examples that your mind chooses to remember are normally anecdotal, because what it doesn't remember is the dozens of times someone's been favored and they've won like they're supposed to. Those are easily forgettable. You remember the exceptions to that rule. Could we have an exception game here? Doesn't matter what the rule is. If it happens in one Saturday, that's all Florida State needs. You've got a do-up spot. You got a do-down spot. It's a rivalry game. So could something weird happen? Oh, I suppose it could. Here's the problem. If you watch the Florida State-Georgia Tech game, and I did until the bitter end, Florida State had a pretty difficult time handling Georgia Tech's front, something that Central Florida did not find themselves saying much. And the reason I mention that is because Georgia Tech's front, all due respect, pales in comparison to the kind of athlete that Miami's putting on the field in their defensive front. And so I wonder, the offensive consistency that wasn't there in the home opener, the timing and rhythm, the playmaking that wasn't there, how is it showing up? I guess crazier things have happened, but I got to be honest with you, I don't see the upset here either. So I keep scanning the board, and that's the nature of an upset. You don't see it coming, but if we see one, at least our model, I was looking at it earlier, if our model sees one, potentially, it's Army versus Cincinnati. That's the one it potentially sees, and it does not call an outright upset. But line on this thing is Cincinnati minus 13.5. It's been 2 touchdowns or thereabouts most of the week, and our numbers have Cincinnati minus 9, so it's a little shorter. Possessions at a premium, obviously, in this thing. And if you're leaning Army, then that is your thought. Your thought is they find an early score, and then maybe they force a turnover, maybe some early 3-and-outs, and they just start racking up play after play after play. Third down conversion after third down conversion. You saw them do it against Oklahoma recently. That would be the formula here. Less firepower in this Cincinnati offense than that Oklahoma offense had. So I can see you putting together the argument. Hey, if they did it against Oklahoma a couple years ago or last year, whenever that was, they could do it here. I think, and I believe that Luke Fickell's staff thinks that his run game can be trusted enough to get this done. As a result, I think it'll be a very conservative offensive approach for Cincinnati. I think it'll be a very low variance approach. Don't necessarily think this one's going to be the most exciting game to watch in the history of the sport. It could be over in like 2 hours, 15 minutes. It could be like a Greg Maddux special here. I'm not picking the upset there either. I would, if I had to, take Army to cover, but would not pick the upset there either. The closest I would come to picking an upset is Kentucky over Auburn, and it certainly would be a point spread upset. Auburn's favored by 7.5. Our numbers have Auburn winning by 4, so we didn't really take a side on the game one way or the other. I don't know how big an upset it would be. I don't know that anyone would label this a shocker. Maybe in any given year in the SEC, yeah, that would be considered a big upset, but knowing what we know, very little home field advantage, which Auburn would normally have and thrive on, and also decided edges on the lines of scrimmage, which Auburn would normally have that they don't have in this game. I don't know that anyone looks at this and calls it a huge upset, to be honest with you. I mean, if you're an Auburn Tiger fan, I understand you have a different slant on this. But outside of there, I've listened to people all week talk about this game. For 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I've listened to people talk about that game. I don't get the sense anyone would be shocked. And I'll tell you, the key here is Kentucky's ability to throw the ball. They got to test whether Auburn's got the pass rush necessary, and they got to test that corner depth for Auburn, because those are 2 question marks coming into this season. I don't care how glowingly the practice reports have made it sound. Those are question marks for Auburn, and those are the areas that Kentucky could strike here, and they could go down to Auburn and steal one.